Hello, hello. So today's episode is a little bit of a spicy one. I think that it's super helpful in terms of level setting, and I'm really excited to share it with you today because it is a conversation that I have oftentimes behind the scenes with my coaching clients, whether that's one-on-one, it's in an intensive, it's in our VIP community for PPA therapists, but I think that comparison can often come up a lot when we are growing on Instagram, right? It's a natural part of growth for sure, especially with Instagram because you can see a lot of people's growth a lot more quickly than you can with like just normal private practice building. So, for instance, it's hard to compare yourself to other therapists on Psychology Today because you have no idea how successful their practice is, right? But on Instagram, you can see how many followers does she have, how many views is she getting on her reel, how many posts is she putting up for course sales that she got during her launch. How many clients did she post that she's seeing today on her to-do list, right? And so there's just a lot more information readily available to make comparisons. And so I want to sort of like talk through that because while comparison can sometimes be helpful, and I think it's really natural, but sometimes it can be helpful as like a motivating factor. Oftentimes I find that it discourages therapists and can really make you question whether or not you're doing something wrong, discourage you from putting yourself out there because it feels like, what's the point? I'm not getting the results everyone else is. So we are going to talk about growth timelines today. We're going to talk about trusting the process as you try to grow on Instagram. And most importantly, we are going to talk about the real reason that she is getting results on Instagram and you are not, right? So let's go. First off, I want to talk about behind the scenes of testimonials. And this goes for my Instagram page and it goes for any other, business coaches you see out there, whether those are Instagram coaches, business coaches for therapists, sales coaches, whatever. Every time that I post a client win, I get a handful of DMs from other therapists on Instagram who are wondering what they're doing wrong. And sometimes I'll go and I'll take a look at their profile and it's very clear that they are doing something wrong, right? Like I have no idea what state they work with, what they work in. I have no idea what their niche is. They're not posting consistently. Their content is like all over the place. So sometimes there is legitimate things that you're doing wrong. But oftentimes, I think that we can sort of compare ourselves to a moment in time and a snapshot and an incomplete story. And so that's something that I wanted to just shed a little bit of light on today in today's episode because it's hard to kind of share like that full context on Instagram. So I always try and do my best when I share a testimonial screenshot with like a DM from somebody. I try and give some context of like, she joined PPA this long ago, or she spent this much money on ads, or she's charging this rate, or she has this many followers, just to sort of give you a little bit of context there. But what's often not seen is the unseen like prep work that people have put in prior to this point, right? So sometimes I'll share, this therapist joined PPA 1 month ago and she just got her first private pay client from Instagram with 500 followers. And that's really helpful to know. That's like a lot more context than I think most people would give. But you may not realize unless you go to her page and scroll down that she was actually posting on Instagram for 3 months prior. And she'd already had 30 posts before she joined PPA. And so she already had like a community of people who were starting to warm up to her. And then she was able to make these simple tweaks, right? Some people have been posting on Instagram for years and they don't get any clients. And then they're able to join PPA, shift something in their marketing and get results quite quickly because their followers already know them. Their followers already know their personalities, right? And so they're able to sign up for one of my programs, make a few shifts to their marketing and get really big results quite quickly. For other people who join Private Practice Academy, they are starting from scratch, right? They have 0 followers, they have 0 clients, they have 0 referral sources, and it takes longer. I was actually in that position myself, right? It took me 3 months, over 100 posts of posting every single day on Instagram to get my first client from Instagram. And that's okay, right? Because I had no existing following. All of my colleagues who I knew worked in nonprofits. I had nobody who I knew in private practice before starting Instagram. That's really where I made my therapist friends. And so I had no referral sources. I had no built-in relationships. I had no, clients, private pay psychiatrists to network with and to like try and get clients from. I was, really starting from scratch. And so it took me longer to build trust with the new people who are following me in order to start converting them into clients. And once I did, right, I started to get clients quite quickly. It took me 3 months to get that first client. And then I was getting like, a handful of private pay clients every single month after that, because by that time I had grown to maybe like 1,000 or 2,000 followers. And I had people who were like getting warmed up and becoming clients. And then I would get new people following me, and those people would get warmed up. And the next month, they would become clients. And it was sort of like this constant growing pipeline of people. And both options are okay, right? Both options are good. Whether you've been posting for a long time and we just need to make a few simple tweaks, and then you're able to finally like actually use your Instagram page to get clients, that's super, super important. Or if you're starting from scratch, knowing that it might take a few months of work for you to see results, and that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're flopping. It just means that people need more time, and that is okay too. Comparison is really the thief of joy. And I was actually talking about this with one of my coaching clients recently. And I asked her if I could share this like example anonymously in a podcast episode. And she said yes. So I'm going to use some fake names here for this podcast episode with her permission, and just share a little bit more about what comparison can really, really look like. Because I had just like, it was a wild 24 hours of like all of these clients comparing themselves to each other. And I just thought it was so interesting, because like the people who were comparing were other people's like hashtag goals, and you just never know what's going on behind the scenes. So as an example, Jessica and Laura both joined Private Practice Academy and my group coaching at the same time. Jessica got a client right away because she had already had an Instagram page. She'd been posting for years. She had a few thousand followers, and she just needed to start like selling and niching down more. The person who became a client, she looked back and she had followed her for years already, right? This client had already known Jessica from her Instagram. She knew her vibe. She knew her personality. And so she was able to start converting clients right away when she made a few simple shifts to her marketing. Laura, on the other hand, had started from scratch, right? She did not have an Instagram page. She was brand new. And so it took her several months of posting consistently to get clients. Now, neither is wrong. Both are very good. Both got private pay clients and eventually a full caseload. Now, both Jessica and Laura, this was years ago now, are both killing it, right? They both have tens of thousands of followers. They both have full private pay practices. And they are ambitious, hardworking therapists with lots of goals. And so they have new goals and new levels of comparison. So now people's successes are kind of flip-flopping, right? So Laura, who it took her several months to get her first private pay client from Instagram, had 6,000 people on her email list because she had a few reels go viral. She was doing like the ManyChat automation. She had a free guide that she was promoting. And so she really grew her Instagram list quite a bit. And she hosted her first workshop and got 45 people to sign up. Jessica, on the other hand, filled her caseload much quicker with private pay clients because she had been on Instagram for a bit already, but she did not really focus on email list building as part of that process. And so she launched her first workshop with less than 100 people on her email list, right? So even though they both have tens of thousands of followers, one therapist has 6,000 people on her email list and the other has 100. So Jessica only got 5 people to sign up for her first workshop. And yet she was wondering, what did I do wrong? Why did Laura have so much more success than me? Why did she get 9 times as many people to her first workshop than I did? And she was viewing her launch as a flop. But what she didn't know was that she was really comparing apples to oranges. She was looking at Instagram following because that's what she could see. But she had no idea that, Laura had 6,000 people on her email list. So she had all these other people that she was selling to behind the scenes. And so we just don't have full context there. And if anything, I think that Jessica really did a good job converting. Out of 100 people on her email list, 5 clients is amazing, right? 5 people joining a workshop is like a great, great, great conversion rate. And she was missing that context because she was just viewing herself as a failure with this workshop because she didn't get these other high numbers that she saw one of her peers getting. So then a few months later, Jessica ends up deciding to launch a group coaching program in a whole new niche, right? And compares herself to another client of mine who I shared had a $30,000 launch. But she didn't know the full context, right? That client we'll call her Amy, who had the 30K launch, had been doing this for 2 years. She had a separate Instagram account dedicated to this niche. She posted daily. She ran a Facebook group. She pays for ads. She has a full team, right? And so, Jessica had 2 people join her group coaching program, which is multi-$1,000 offer. Again, very good launch for the fact that it's a brand new niche. It's a brand new program. It's her first time doing it. She's barely talked about that on Instagram, has like very small email lists again, but is comparing herself and feeling like a failure because she's not having these 30K launches that she's seeing other folks having. And we just miss like so much. And meanwhile, I'm also having conversations with, we'll call her Amy at the same time, who's having a mini freak out with team stuff going on behind the scenes, that her offers aren't scalable enough, that maybe she should switch her niche a little bit and broaden things. And there's just so much comparison that happens where we beat ourselves up for not having success that we see other people have, but we don't realize that we are comparing like really very different things, right? And so I think most of the time comparisons are unhelpful, but if you are going to make them, it is really important that you have more full context, that you understand the work that went into it, and that you are comparing like similar levels, similar outputs, similar length of time. If you're trying to gauge, like, is this really working for me or do I need to shift gears here, right? Because it's so unfair to compare your month 1 with a new niche, with a new offer, to somebody's year 2 who's done like 7 or 8 launches. It just, of course, you're never going to have those results, right? Their first launch probably looked a lot closer to yours, right? And so I think that comparison can often cause people, when they're not in coaching containers, when they're not getting that reflected back to them, when they're not being told like, actually, let's look at the numbers here. You did a really good job. We just need to get like more people in your audience like aware of this niche or whatever. It can be hard, and it can cause people to give up, to switch gears, to say, let me launch a different offer. Let me try a different niche. Let me do this other thing. When really the big difference between the people who you're comparing yourself to and you is time, right? It's consistency. It's doing the same thing again and again and again. And all of the scenarios that I just shared here, by the way, are really, really, really big wins. Again, these are anonymous names, but like Jessica, Laura, Amy, they're all absolutely crushing it, right? Like 10K months, setting themselves up for long-term success, tons of followers on Instagram. But behind the scenes, you have no idea that they are struggling themselves too, right? The work, the expenses, the responsibility, the goals, the ambition. And so it can just be like really challenging, right? And all 3 of these therapists started from completely different places. And so because of that, they saw completely different results. Their timelines look different. The offers that they chose to scale look different. And it's just not, it doesn't make sense to make these comparisons. So I hope that when I share testimonials, you're able to see that they are just a snapshot of what my clients are working on, not the whole picture. Everybody has struggles. The therapists you look up to, all of it. That's one of the biggest reasons why I started this podcast, was I wanted to be able to share more transparently behind the scenes of the struggles that like I have in my business, the struggles my clients have in their businesses, because it's so hard on Instagram to give so much context. And I really think that is needed in order for more therapists to feel confident in their work, to feel like they're doing things right, to really stick with it, to go after those goals. So I just hope that this is like helpful context here. So let's talk a little bit about what factors influence your growth timeline, right? So number 1 is if you have a pre-existing audience. So if you already had somewhat of a social media presence, as a therapist specifically, it is going to be probably easier and faster for you to both grow and for you to get clients from Instagram than if you are starting from zero. That's just like a fact, right? That doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong if you're starting from zero. Everyone starts from zero at some point, but the only thing that you can do is to start, right? To start posting consistently, to start building up those following, to start like, being in people's feed every day, building that know, like, and trust factor. But if you already had a pre-existing audience, you can probably expect to grow a little bit faster than your peers who are starting from scratch. Did you already have a clear niche by the time that you started marketing yourself on Instagram, or joining Private Practice Academy, or joining the Reels membership, right? If you already had a clearly defined niche, if you already knew exactly who you were speaking to, if you already had really good messaging, your content is going to take off way faster. Your website is going to convert way better, right? Everything is going to move easier for you. If you are somebody who doesn't know your niche and you're still figuring it out, that is okay. There's only one way to do that, is by putting content out there, by seeing clients, by taking time, by reflecting. But it's going to take longer for you to grow. I did not know my niche when I started on Instagram. I've changed my niche several times. And that's okay. It took me a little bit longer to grow, to figure it out. And I still earned $250,000 my first year, right? Like, you don't have to go in knowing everything. But of course, if you already go in knowing your niche, it's going to move a little bit faster. Do you already have clients, right? That will definitely impact your income growth. So if you already have clients who are insurance based, or maybe you work at a group practice that's private pay and they're letting you take your clients with you to your own practice, or you have clients who are really low fee and you can increase your rates, you are going to have an easier time increasing your income because you have existing people who you can get off of insurance with, move from group practice to your private pay practice, move from a lower rate to a higher rate, and that will greatly increase your income versus starting from scratch and needing to get 100% new clients, right? So if you have clients that you can take with you into this new model of your private practice, you're going to grow faster. You're going to meet those income goals faster than somebody, like myself, who was coming from a nonprofit. I was like a managing director level. I had no individual one-on-one clients, and the clients that we were working with were experiencing homelessness. They definitely weren't going to be affording therapy at $250 per session. So I was starting from scratch there, right? That was going to take longer. Then I went to a group practice, and that group practice owner let me bring my clients over with me to private practice. And so that was like a faster period of transition for me. They were all insurance-based. They stuck with me as I moved them to insurance-based private pay practice, or insurance private practice. But I went from earning like $45 per session at the group practice to $125 per session with Alma and my own private practice. And so that was a pretty easy way for me to triple my income, because I had some existing clients that I was able to bring from the group practice over to my own practice. So that obviously is going to increase your timeline, your growth pace. Confidence, right? So how confident are you from the beginning with sharing your services, with sharing your knowledge, with sharing your expertise, with charging a high rate, right? Are you able to go right in and say from the jump, I'm going to charge $250 per session? Or are you like, I don't know, let me start with $150, and then maybe another 6 months from then you decide to go to $200, and the next year you decide to go to $250. That's okay too, right? But if you don't have that confidence from the jump and you're starting at a lower rate, or you are feeling really bad talking about your rates on intro calls and you don't have those skills yet, it's going to take you longer to increase your income. Consistency, right? So if you already had a pre-existing audience, were you already posting consistently? Were you already engaging with your audience as a therapist? Or are we really starting to nurture from scratch? Human and life factors. I feel like so many therapists forget this. But are you in a position to even create effective content consistently, right? Do you have young kids? Do you have a second job? Do you have time carved out in your schedule? Do you have a chronic illness you're dealing with? Are you pregnant or postpartum? Those things are all going to impact how much time and effort you can devote into this. And that's okay, right? It's important to recognize your own capacity and do this in a way that feels sustainable to you. But for sure, when I was growing my private practice, I worked fully remotely. I did work 60 hours a week. I had a really busy job. But I worked fully remotely. I had no kids. And I was able to do stuff in the mornings, on the weekends. It felt really important to me. I was young. I had a lot of energy. And I was like, yeah, I'll wake up at 7 a.m. and film reels for 2 hours before I start work at 9 on my laptop. And that was okay. If I was doing that now, I'm currently pregnant. I'm like, I could not work a 12-hour day. It just would not happen for me. And so, human and life factors change things. Did you have the tech skills already to be able to create content and edit it? Or are you starting from scratch and learning and figuring it out? It's super figure outable. We have tutorials for everything inside of Private Practice Academy, but obviously if you already know how to do that from the scratch, you're probably going to grow a little bit faster than if you're needing to watch all those tutorials first and practice. No matter where you're at, joining the Reels membership or joining Private Practice Academy is going to help you to speed up that success, because it's going to give you the tools that you need no matter where you're starting from, right? Whether that is the tech skills, whether it is the sales skills, whether it is the confidence in charging a rate, whether if it's, the business skills to have like a process to onboard new clients, if it's helping with your niching down, if it's helping to create a plan to like batch content faster, if it's helping you to come up with content ideas. All of those things are going to help you speed up your growth timeline. So that's another factor to really consider as well, is like, how much support are you getting? Okay, last thing I want to touch on today is defining what success means to you. Because I think that oftentimes with all the information that we're able to see about other people on Instagram, it can be easy to start to shift our idea of success and to start to hold ourselves to standards that we see other people doing without pausing to actually ask ourselves, like, what do we want this to look like, right? Oftentimes I see therapists, they fill their caseload and then they're like, what's next? I guess I have to launch a course or do a group coaching program or whatever. And it's like, do you actually want to do those things? Like, let's figure out what actually sounds exciting to you. Do you enjoy facilitating groups? Do you enjoy teaching? Do you enjoy creating content? Maybe you want to go more into brand partnerships. Do you enjoy mentorship? Maybe you want to start a group practice. Or did you start a private practice to make more money and have more time with your family? Maybe you don't want to scale yet, right? Maybe you just want to stay here and be comfortable and be earning well into the six figures and not have to worry about launching another offer. That's okay too. But I think that it's really, really helpful to set clear goals. Of course, you can change them, but set like a clear goal for the next 6 months or a year and recognize where you want to go. Success is going to look different for you if you're just starting out than somebody who already has an established presence. So be realistic with them, right? Like if you are just starting, maybe you're not like, in the next 2 months, I want to get to 10,000 followers. That's probably pretty unrealistic. Maybe we give yourself a goal of 5,000 followers for the first year or 10,000 followers for the first year. And knowing that if you set a big goal, like 10,000 followers in the first year, it's going to require big effort, like posting every day, right? Or maybe if you're like, I have no desire to eventually go the influencer route or the digital product route or whatever. We don't even set a follower goal. We're just like, I want to fill my caseload with 12 clients at $200 per session and earn, 6 figures a year. Like, let's be really clear about what success looks like for you so you can measure your success against your own goals, your own things that you decided were important for you versus getting distracted and seeing, I saw so-and-so go viral, or I saw so-and-so get a brand deal. I saw so-and-so sell out her launch and now I feel like a failure, right? Set the goals that you actually want to succeed, that you actually want to meet, and that feel like success to you, right? That feel like why you're doing this whole thing to begin with. And then, of course, as you grow, as you meet those goals, you can stop and pause and see, do I have new goals? Do I want to add on new things here? Do I feel good? Do I have capacity to take more clients or to launch something else? Do I have goals to grow this Instagram page further, etc.? But really stop, pause, acknowledge that success, celebrate the heck out of it, make it feel really, really good. Don't just move on to the next thing. And then decide, what do you actually want next versus what do you think you should do next? Okay, so homework for this episode is I really want you to step out of comparison and to set really tangible goals for yourself and to figure out what that means. And also homework for you, I want you to stop and find at least one win that you are proud of and that you can celebrate as part of your success, because it is so important to acknowledge the progress along the way, right? So go out on a date night where you toast specifically to the fact that you got a new private pay client this month. Buy yourself, a new workout set or a piece of jewelry or, whatever, or take a Friday off and move your Friday clients if you already have some, and have a day where you just like relax and read your favorite book and, hang out outside or whatever, but like buy yourself a cupcake and blow out a candle. Do whatever you need to do, but celebrate those milestones, celebrate those clients, celebrate that Instagram growth, celebrate all of it, because that is what's going to make it feel really, really good. That's what's going to help you get out of comparison, and that's what's going to help keep you motivated in the long run. If you would like to, I would be really, really happy if you wanted to DM me and let me know what is a small win that you are celebrating, that you are proud of. I will celebrate the heck out of it for you and with you. So please DM me and let me know. I'm so proud of you. There is no win that is too small. to celebrate, right? Even posting your first reel is like so worth celebrating. So please take a moment and do that. And if you would love to do it with me, I would be so honored. I am cheering you on always, my friends.